Hey everybody, I cannot tell you how fortunate you are this week. And I know that because of how fortunate I know I am to have had another opportunity to talk to Jason Goldberg. This guy is an award-winning entrepreneur. He is a fellow TEDx speaker. He opened for the Wu-Tang Clan because he's a former rapper. He used to be 332 pounds and has lost 130 pounds. This guy is unbelievable. And we developed a relationship at TEDx Raleigh in 2016 when we were both speakers. And he's one of those guys that brings ahas and ha-has to people. And I'm so excited to have him on the Mastering Mentorship podcast. I wanted to talk to him specifically about one area, which is something he taught me that I wanted to talk to him more about, which is the difference between being serious and being sincere. And Jason taught me something that has been so influential, not only as me as a human being, but also as me as a coach and as a Dale Carnegie instructor. And so I'd love to give you the opportunity to listen to our conversation. We talk about seriousness, we talk about sincerity, we talk about coaching, we talk about thought processes, and Jason's just an amazing thinker and just an amazing human being who has since moved out to California. He was also kind enough, and this is one of the things that's amazing. One of my favorite books, in fact, is his book. It's called Prison Break. And he was kind enough to give away a link to a free copy of his book. So please make sure that you go to prisonbreak.com/masteringmentorship. You'll also find that link in the show notes below. Make sure you take advantage of this. This is incredible information. It's transformational. It's life-changing. And it's such an important book for me. And I'm so proud to be able to share this with each of you. Please help me welcome Mr. Jason Goldberg. Bro, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Me too, dude. I'm like, this is a huge honor, and I haven't been in your same oxygen space for a while, so the fact that we get to play for a little while is like huge for me. I really appreciate it.
In fact, you probably don't know this. You're actually one of the people that most motivated me to start the Mastering Mentorship podcast.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm honored to hear that. I mean, you have so much amazing stuff to share. I don't know why it took you so long, but I'm glad that there's something there that helped you to do that, because you're a total rock star, man.
Well, and what most people don't know is all of the conversations and all of the strategery that happened over the left-handed extra hot almond lattes.
People will never know. We can't share that with them either. There's only so much. There's only so much the public is ready for, Doug. We can't give them everything that happened over those lattes.
So the big thing that I would like. So congratulations. Today you are the mentor.
Sweet.
And I am the mentee. So I will be asking the questions, and you will be answering them in the most wisdom sort of way, the deepest crevices of your heart and soul. So the big thing that I'd like to talk about is something we've talked about in the past, and it's the difference between being serious and being sincere. Share with us a little bit about your thesis on that idea.
Yeah, so a big part of what I talk about is living a not so serious life. And for me, because I already knew what that meant, I thought everybody else would know what it meant. And so when I went out into the world and started saying that, I would get the exact same, or almost the exact same, or some derivative of the exact same response to that every time, is that people thought I was advocating being aimless and being goalless, and shooting people with Nerf guns all day, and hitting people with water balloons, and getting drunk and not going into your work, not going to your job, and all these things that I just never equated with seriousness. And so my entire life, the reason that this message even became important to me is because my entire life, when I had issues with my physical weight, being 300 plus pounds, but being heavy my entire life, I would always hear, like, you better get serious about your health, right? You better get serious about your health. emphasize serious. And when I became an entrepreneur, people saying like, well, if you were a serious entrepreneur, you would be doing this. And if you ever want to be in a serious relationship, you better do this. And it's just like every time I heard that word serious, it just felt so heavy. Now, there may be people listening to this when they hear, you know, if you're a serious entrepreneur, you would do this, and that motivates them. And like for you guys, cool, like do that. Like whatever serves you, do that, right? This is not about right or wrong. It's about effective versus ineffective. For me, it wasn't effective when I would try to be serious. And it wasn't that I should even clarify effective. It wasn't that I wasn't productive when I was serious. I was extremely serious through my entire, you know, nearly 15-year corporate career in IT. And I did really well, you know, 6 figures in my 20s and the director level position in my mid 20s at a technology company. And all that stuff was great. And at the same time, what it was doing to me on the inside was really tearing me up. I mean, the stress, the anxiety, the depression, you know, suicidal thoughts from really kind of mid to late teens, even into my mid 20s, all these things that were a result of me taking life entirely too seriously. And so I wanted to find out how I could still be my natural self, and my natural self is somebody who's ambitious, who's hardworking, who works hard, who's driving forward, all these things, and not take it all so seriously. And then that's where this distinction, which I actually think originally originated with Alan Watts, this distinction of serious versus sincere. He talks about it in a different way, but it really resonated with me. And so the question I started asking myself is, well, what if I can do all these things that people said I need to be serious about when I do them, and instead come from this place of relaxed, playful, gentle, devoted, focused, creative sincerity, right? Like, how can I be sincere about what I want to create in the world? How can I be sincere about my commitment to my health? How can I be sincere about the work that I'm doing in the world and how I want to serve people? How can I do all that without this heavy, you know, debilitating, resistance-filled seriousness that I had felt when I was creating things in the past, if that makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. So how do you make that switch though? Like, I remember you were the person that brought this idea to me, and I remember we're sitting in Raleigh at Jubala Coffee Shop, and you're like, dude, you can't be so serious. And I'm like, bro, this is important. Like, I've got to be serious. I can't not be serious about this. And you shared with me the distinction about serious versus, well, no, be sincere. You don't necessarily have to be serious. So how does one actually make that mental transition? Because that seems as though that's a big transition for people to make.
It's a big transition, and it's as big as you make it. So it's a big transition when we make it a big transition. And the reason that it seems like a big transition, at least for me, and then I've tested this idea out with people that I've coached and spoken to, and it seems to kind of hold true, is that the only reason we think that we have to be serious is actually because we've never tested the alternative, right? And so I'll do this exercise where I'll, you know, if I'm doing a training for a company or a talk or something, and I'll put up on a whiteboard and I'll have 2 columns, and one says in flow and the other one says ready to blow, right?
Yeah.
And so I basically, you know, I ask the people in the room, I say, you know, what does it look like? What does it feel like when you're about to blow? Like looking at your workload, looking at whatever's going on in your family or your health or whatever. What does it look and feel like? What are some words that you would describe? And people are saying stressed and anxious and upset and afraid and doubtful and, you know, just all these, they can't sleep, all these things, right? I said, great. And what does it look like when you're in flow? Like, you know, the moments where you feel like, you know, time stands still and you're just, you know, loving your life. Maybe you're with your family, maybe with your friends, maybe you're working out, whatever it is. And they start giving me those descriptive words, and we put those. And I said, so if we all agree that this is what it looks and feels like when we're getting ready to blow, and this is what it looks like when we're in flow, why don't we just do more of this, right? The in flow stuff, right? Like it seems so simple. Why don't we just do that? And one of the answers I would get time and time again is that people say, well, no, I need that stress and that fear and that anxiety to motivate me. Like if I just decide to be more relaxed and to be more gentle and to be a bit more chilled out, then I won't have the drive to do anything. I'll just watch Netflix and I'll, you know, eat bonbons on the couch and grow a beard. And I'm like, really, miss? And she's like, yes. and that's the thing. And it makes total sense if you've never tested that, to be sure. And that was my first shift, was that when I first started recognizing this, it was like, well, yeah, I have those same fears too. I have and this is still, and Doug, we talked about this all the time. And I think we both talk about this in the work that we do. Transformation is instant and lifelong, right? You can see the insight immediately, but we're humans, and this stuff will show up over and over the rest of your life. So you're never done. You have to keep practicing this. So I know for me, I will still get in this default place of, well, I need to have like some crazy stressful deadline in order for me to get into action. And that was the belief I always had, that, okay, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't take action. And so finally I said, I'm going to be courageous and stop being a little, punk about this. And I'm going to test this for myself. And I'm going to say, okay, if I purposefully choose to be relaxed and sincere and look at the same amount of stuff I have on my plate. I'm not taking anything off my plate. I'm not, taking a shortcut. I'm not doing anything else. Just assuming that the outside world stays the same. I'm going to approach what's on my plate from this other place, this place of relaxed, creative, purposeful, joyful sincerity. And let's see how I feel. And miraculously, when I'm not wasting all this time trying to manage my heavy, serious emotions, I actually have even more of a drive to complete stuff. I have even more of a drive to test things and to experiment with different ideas and to get out there and be of service to the world. So I think the big shift is to say, let me suspend my beliefs about what productivity looks like in the world. Let me suspend my beliefs about what I think it means to be successful in the world, because everybody thinks that's stress and anxiety and fear and despair and not sleeping and hustle and grind and sleep when you die. And let me just play with this, right? I'm a big advocate of like playing, experimenting. Let me just play with this other idea that I may be just as productive, if not more so, if I'm sincere instead of serious. And I started testing that, and I started seeing it be successful for me. And so I kept testing it more, and it really does work.
So it's a mindset.
Always a mindset. It's like 80-20, dude. 80% mindset, 20% skill set, always.
So here's the interesting thing. When I'm teaching my classes, I oftentimes ask this question. I said, by a show of hands, how many of you, but just there's an inkling, there's maybe just a chance that this is true, maybe. How many of you would raise your hand and say that maybe, just maybe, there's something about life you haven't figured out yet?
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And everyone raises their hand. And this is a little bit of a trick, because if anyone ever doesn't raise their hand, I'm going to switch places, right? I'm going to take the rest of the night off. But everyone always raises their hand and say, okay, so the thing is, the problem with not knowing is that you don't know what you don't know. And so if you don't take the time to do exactly, and I love the way you say suspend your belief. If you don't take the time to suspend your belief and actually test stuff and say, well, what if I did this action and thought about it this way, what would be the change in result, right? And essentially that's what you're telling us.
1,000%. And it actually goes back to something I talked about in my TEDx talk, was the I don't know mind. Yeah. Right? That we are incentivized from very early on in our lives through our, the traditional education system, and definitely in our jobs. I was in IT, like I said, for almost 15 years before I became an entrepreneur. And you didn't say, I don't know. That's not okay. That you're paid to know. Right. But the challenge when we're trying to, and that's fine in a technical kind of forum. And actually, it's really okay to say I don't know in a technical kind of forum, but that's a top-down leadership thing, and that's a whole different discussion. Sure. But as far as a mindset is concerned, it's okay to be like, I don't know if this thing is going to work for me, but I'm willing to test it. So I love your question, like, and that's, even that is such a playful question. Like, who here will admit that there may be something they don't know about life or about the world? Like that's a beautiful model for the moment by moment, gentle, step by step awareness and transformation that makes a big difference in our lives. Like, in this particular thing I'm dealing with in this moment, whatever this thing is, like anybody listening, you have some challenge that right before you started listening to this podcast, you're like, I've got to figure this freaking thing out because it's ruining my life. If you were able to ask yourself right after this podcast, if I were going to be 5% less serious and 5% more sincere about this thing, how would I show up differently? And like, dude, that can change everything.
Yeah. So let's make a quick transition here. So you can hear the rustling of the pages. I actually do have books, and I make notes on actual paper. One of the books, this is actually, I love to tell this story. One of the books that I refer people to more than anything else is your book, is Prison Break. In fact, I will talk about it and read quotes out of it in my Dale Carnegie classes.
That's awesome.
What I don't tell people is that I know the author. You want to know why?
That's awesome.
Because
why?
People that know the author and refer the book of a friend, the book usually sucks.
Good point.
So
Very good point.
People immediately discredit the quality of the book if I say, I know this guy, you should read his book. I just say,
so even worse if you're like, I share lattes with this guy and we've had intimate deep conversations, then it's totally crap.
It's completely crap. But as I think about the idea, and we're talking about mindset and shifting our thinking, being not so serious, being less serious in our life, I'd like you to talk for a minute about intuition. One of your chapters is titled "Your Intuition is Drunk." So if I want to make a change in my mindset, and I try to engage that, and then I find my intuition lying on the floor drunk, how am I supposed to deal with that? And what does that mean?
Yeah, totally, man. It's funny, man. That is literally my favorite chapter in the book. And when I say it's my favorite chapter in the book, the reason I say that is because it's the one I go back to for me more than any other chapter. I've said it before a billion times. Like I wrote this book for me. I don't really care if anybody else reads it. It was for me to get out of my own head as this stuff pops back up in my own life. And that is the chapter I go back to more than anything, because I truly believe that the quality of thinking, the quality of your state of mind at any given moment dictates your experience of the world, right? And the easiest example I can think of this for anybody who has kids, or if you have nieces, nephews. I don't have any kids, but I have nieces and nephews, and you know, if a little girl or a little boy has a little doll and the head pops off of it, it's like literally the end of the world for that child, right? They are crying and they're screaming, and yet for some reason we, as the parent or the adult or whatever, look at that same instance and say, oh, it's okay, we'll just pop the head back on and everything will be okay, right? So that child's state of mind in that moment doesn't allow them to see what a small problem this is. Whereas we, you know, the enlightened adults, which we know most of the time the kids are way more enlightened than we are, but in that moment, we as the enlightened adults who are above the situation, as in our level of consciousness, our level of awareness of the truth of the situation is at a higher level, we see this from a high state of mind and say, oh no, the creative solution is very easy. I'm just going to pop the head back on. So what I noticed in myself and my clients over the years is that when we are in a low state of mind, it is the absolute worst time in the world to try to solve our problems, right? We cannot see it, right? And I have this thing I do called the ladder of self-leadership, and it's really like being on a ladder. Like the lower you are on this ladder, the lower your consciousness is, the lower the less parts of your brain that you're using, right? The more primitive you are in nature, the less you're going to see the obvious solutions in front of you. Right. But as you raise up the ladder and you start using more of your brain and you start using more of your consciousness and you are in higher spirits, all of a sudden these same things become very easy to solve. So the notion of your intuition is drunk is essentially saying, like, listen, you have an innate creativity. You have an innate guidance system. It's been there since you were born. There's nothing new you need to learn about using it. You don't need more information to make most of the decisions that you're making in the world. Yeah. What you need is a clear enough mind to access that level of creativity. And so when I say your intuition is drunk, what I'm saying is this beautiful guidance system that's inside of you is not in a place where it can be tapped into. Right. Yeah. It's just, the way I talk about it in the book is if you have a mentor, right? So this is a perfect, for this podcast, it's perfect. If you have somebody who's a mentor, and I'll shift from drunk to sick, because for some people that's a better thing. I don't want to offend anybody. Well, I do want to offend people, but not on your show. So let's say you have a mentor or an uncle or an aunt or a father figure or a mother figure or a teacher or a coach or whatever that you always go to for advice. And they will drop everything that they're doing to serve you. No matter what is going on in the world, they drop it because they care about you. And if you need help, they're there to help you. And let's say you have this huge problem one day and you walk into their office or their room and you say, listen, I really need some help. And you find them like in a horrible state of sickness. Like they have the flu and they have pneumonia and they have chicken pox and polio and all the, which is like wherever they've gone, don't go there, first of all. But let's just say they have all these things going on and you ask them for help. Whatever they say, you're probably not going to really take to heart because you're like, oh man, right. They're in such a bad place right now. And as a matter of fact, you're in such a bad place, person that always takes care of me. I'm going to take care of you for a little while. Like I think you need to be taken care of. Right. And so the relation of that to intuition is, listen, sometimes we're in a low state of mind. treat your intuition like a magic 8-ball. Like the magic 8-balls you would shake and it says ask again later. Mm-hmm. Like don't take anything seriously or to heart or sincerely what your inner guidance or gut or intuition tells you when you feel heavy, when you feel like you're in a down place. Let your intuition sober up, and you can't force it to sober up. You can watch funny videos and you can meditate and you can go hang out with friends, and that may help. But in general, if you just give it time, your intuition will sober up, and then you can go and ask that same question again, and you'll get a much better answer, much better direction, much better guidance that you can actually use to move forward in your life.
Oh my gosh, I love that. It reminds me of something my mentor says. He'll ask the people he's coaching or his class. He'll say, "When is the worst time to check the air in your spare tire?" When's the worst time? The worst time is at midnight, on the side of the road, in the snow, when you don't have a jacket. That's the worst time to find out if you have any air back there. The best time is a sunny Sunday afternoon when you don't have anything going on, and you can pop the trunk and check the air pressure. And so don't check the air pressure when you absolutely have to have the spare tire. Make sure it's full. Make sure you have a way to access it when you actually need it.
Absolutely, I love that. It's such a beautiful visual of really making sure you're taking care of things. You know, they say with entrepreneurship, like the worst time to ask for money from an investor is when you need it, right? Like you should, ask when you don't need it. So check in with these things to make sure you're taking care of yourself. And one of my favorite quotes around kind of like quality of mind, and it directly goes back to this whole serious versus sincere conversation, is Albert Einstein has this quote: "You can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it."
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about with the drunk intuition. If you're low on your ladder, if your intuition is drunk when the problem is created, the low on the ladder drunk intuition is not going to be able to solve it. Yeah. And so one of the ways, like I said, you can't force your intuition to sober up. But one of the ways that your intuition maybe drinks an extra couple cups of coffee and has some greasy food and maybe soaks with the alcohol, all those urban myths about how to get sober quickly. One of the ways you can kind of accelerate that a bit is to ask yourself maybe where you're taking the existence of this problem a bit too seriously. Right. This is not about wearing rose-colored glasses and saying like, no, that person didn't cut me off in traffic. They liberated me from my speed. Like it's not about lying to yourself. Right. It's not about lying, but it is about saying like, oh, given the conditions under which I'm living right now. Right. Given that my boss just yelled at me in front of people and I feel really small and really angry right now. Like given those things, I'm in a low state of mind because I'm angry and I'm on edge. So I'm not going to be able to solve this right now because I understand that, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. Right. So given that, how can I be 5% more sincere about just relaxing a little bit? Not trying to solve anything, but just relaxing. Not taking this whole thing seriously. I better respond. He better know what's going on. She better never talk to me like that again. All that really serious, heavy stuff. And like, what if I was 5% more sincere about making sure that I just relax and I calm down and I know that the proper response to the situation will occur to me once my intuition is sober again.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. Here's one of the things that I read out of your book to people all the time in my classes. And it's from this chapter. It says, the dependability, truthfulness, and power of your intuition are directly related to your state of mind and quality of thinking.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you just said, right? It's a matter of quality of thinking. So one of the questions that I get often from my clients that I'd be interested in how you think about this. What about the people that say, how do I affect or how do I impact the quality of thinking for someone else, for my spouse, for my parent, for my friend, for someone that irritates me at work? How do I help them to have this awareness? Because the quality of thinking is really, what I heard from you, is really about awareness, right? Yeah. It's about being able to be aware of, oh, this is what I'm feeling, and here's the impact it's having on me. And that's what gives us the ability to make the transition mentally. So how do we give that to other people?
So there's a few different ways. So the first way, if you want to end the relationship, say Jason Goldberg just told me what's wrong with you, and do it that way. So that's one way to do it, where you end the relationship with the person. But if you don't want to end the relationship with the person, which is, I'm assuming, what most people, they don't want to have happen,
yes. Or can't, I think it's kind of, or can't, right?
Or can't, right? Yeah. So I think there's kind of two ways to do it, and it's. So there's two ways to do it. The first one is you just got to be that thing right? It's like instead of getting people to see the light, just be the light,
Yeah.
right? And when they're ready, you will have illuminated a path for them to follow, right? So it's really just showing up that way. And I remember at one point on the Not So Serious Life webcast that I used to have with Steve Chandler, we had somebody write in before and say, what do I do about the fact that I'm very much a self-leader, but my wife is very much a prisoner, and I don't want my kids to adopt that? Like, how do I make sure the kids don't do what she does? And our answer was essentially like, kids are really smart. Yeah. They're going to see that something happens in the house and mom reacts this way and dad reacts this way. And they're going to say, wow, man, when things go wrong, mom gets really upset and she yells and she cries and she screams and she throws things. And then, dad, he kind of, gets a little upset, but then he realizes, like, okay, well, maybe there's something we can do about it. And let's get creative and let's not let it ruin our day. And they're going to pick. Mm-hmm. So if you're truly, if we truly recognize that we can't change anybody at all, that really, to me, all leadership is self-leadership, right, then we show up that way and we hope that they see, wow, that's an interesting and seemingly more effective way of being than maybe what I've been doing. Yeah. That's step one. But the second part of this is super, super subtle and something that I think a lot of people miss in their relationships. And even doing it is a subtle thing, is celebrating the crap out of people when they do exhibit this level of self-leadership, right? So like it can be the smallest thing. And what we typically do is we either ignore it, or what's so much worse and do this, like, this is such a pet peeve to me. People do it to me and I can't stand it. And I can't stand when other people do it to other people. Somebody exhibits some level of self-leadership and the people's response is, oh, what happened to Doug? Who replaced Doug with this person who takes responsibility? Don't do that. Yeah. Like, don't think it's funny to ridicule as a way to appreciate it. With that kind of thing, it doesn't work. So really genuinely acknowledge. And Doug, you're so great about this. You are like the acknowledgement king. And I love the way you teach your acknowledgement game. Like, you're so good about genuinely acknowledging the impact that people have on your life and the lives around you when they act a certain way. Genuinely acknowledging people, probably more in private than in public as well, when they exhibit this kind of thing, is the fastest way to get them to do it more often.
Yeah, and one of the things I found is to acknowledge them behind their backs.
Yeah.
Tell someone, because whether gossip is positive or negative, it always gets back to the person, right?
It always spreads. Yeah.
So if you're spreading positive gossip, it gets back to someone, those are the ones that's like, wow, he cared enough to say that about me, and he had no idea that I would ever find out, right? Yeah. When you talk about hitting, we talk about in the Dale Carnegie program, hitting people in their emotional core with our feedback and recognition. And one of the principles is praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement.
Ooh,
right?
Yes.
And I give the analogy and I tell the story about Kendall, my daughter, learning to walk. Right, we stood her up. She's toddling. She's just almost there. Stand her up on the coffee table. Run across the room, and me and Meredith, my wife, are like going crazy, and we're cheering. And she takes 2 steps and falls. And we just start like, you stupid, what's wrong with you, stupid boy? Can't you? We know you can walk. Why don't you walk? Like, of course we don't do that, right? What do? We cheer, we praise, we like clap, we act crazy. We pick her up and we encourage her to do it again. And that's what creates the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th and the 6th step. But if we beat her down and punished her, I think what happens sometimes, Jason, and I'd like to know what you think about this, is I think we expect performance out of people that they cannot possibly give us because they don't have the skills to give them to us.
Yeah, I totally. Yeah.
And when that happens, what that gives us is an unrealistic expectation of the world around us, and it causes us to write these covert contracts with people, right? Where I have an expectation of you and of your behavior and of the way you respond or react to me or the circumstances of the world around you. I just haven't told you what it is yet.
Mm. And so unfair. It's unfair to them because they don't know, but it's also unfair to you because look at what you do to yourself, or look at what we do to ourselves when we expect something out of somebody and they have no idea, and they may not have the, like you said, the mindset or the skill set to give it to us. And it's the analogy I always use is stop going to your dry cleaner for accounting advice. Like it's not fair. Like, go to your dry cleaner for a dry cleaner. Like, they're awesome at that. And if you really think your dry cleaner should be an accountant, then pay for them to go to school, to be an accountant. Right. But otherwise, stop expecting people to do things that are just not what they're there to do.
Yeah, that's incredible. So talking about my daughter learning to walk reminds me of another very interesting part of the book. One of my second favorite, and it's the baby assassin.
Do not call Kendall a baby assassin. Kendall's a saint.
She's not. No. She is a saint. She's the greatest of all time. The baby assassin is the opposite. And one of the things that I think is really interesting that you write that you hired him, you trained him, you promoted him to higher and higher levels in your consciousness. And it got to the point that he was running so much of your daily operations that you would defer to him every second without ever second guessing his decisions.
Yeah.
So tell us about the baby assassin.
Yeah, the baby assassin is, as you know, Doug, and as people I hope are starting to get a sense, like I love to play with challenges as much as possible. Like that's really what playfulness means to me. It's about bringing a spirit of play, a spirit of creativity to our biggest challenges so that they're no longer as problematic or that they're easier to play with. And so the baby assassin for me is my anthropomorphizing, if that's how you say it. It's my personification.
Wait, no, don't know.
Nobody knows.
Big word.
I'm making up words. Doug said he paid me $5 for every word I make up, so now I'm at $2.50. I basically wanted to put a persona around these thoughts that are in my head, because one of the most debilitating things that ran my life for so long and still obviously pops up again because I'm human is me thinking that my thoughts are somehow who I am, or that my thoughts, because they're in my head, are mine, or that my thoughts, because they're in my head, are truth. Like, none of those things are true. The only truth is that the thoughts that are in my head are the thoughts that are in my head. Like, that's where it ends. And so for me, the way to do that in a way where I felt like, okay, this is something I can play with, is I decided to make all of the heavy, stressful, not so comfy feeling thoughts in my head that tell me I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid, or I'm not smart enough, or you're fat, or you're this, or you're that, and started pretending that it was literally this little teeny baby that's in my head that's wearing like a little ninja onesie. And anytime he feels like it, he just starts like karate chopping the crap out of me from like inside my head. And I can't do anything about it. He's just in there like just chopping the crap out of me. And that's what it feels like. I'm just like being overtaken by this little, demon that's inside me. And so the reason I made him a baby also was because then I can picture in my mind taking this baby out, and I write about this in the book, taking this baby out by his little ninja onesie and taking him out of my head and laying him down in front of me and just recognizing that he's just like this little innocent child that if it weren't for his own crabbiness or hunger or tiredness or confusion or whatever, would be totally fine and would be playing or sleeping or cooing or whatever babies do. And so I can put the baby down and I can choose to either like fight with the baby, which never gets us anywhere, nope. or to make the baby wrong or to make the baby stupid. Or I can just say like, oh, there's the baby assassin doing what it does. Like, dogs bark, cats meow, my baby assassin's going to try to make me feel bad about myself. And the sooner I recognize that like that's what it does and it's not that big of a deal, then the thoughts can still exist. Like I don't need to push the thoughts away. I don't need to fight them. I don't need to overcome them. Like I hate all that overly masculine personal growth where it's like push through and fight through and overcome. It's just like if it's just a little baby assassin, I don't have to overcome him. I'll just sit there and he'll sit there and the thoughts can be there and it's irrelevant and I can keep living my life.
Yeah. One of the things I can remember you said to me in one of our coffee shop mentoring sessions was, and this was the first time I heard this. Maybe you made it up. Perhaps it was a quote from someone else, but I wrote it down nonetheless. And you said, "You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts."
Yeah.
Did you make that up?
I don't think I made it up entirely. I mean, I think everything I do is derivative of somebody.
Well, there's nothing new, right?
There's nothing new under the sun. But yeah, that and it's really that simple. And like that's one of the most profound things that when I first kind of got that awareness. And again, I say got as in like I have it and never have to worry about it again. I get it over and over again still. Once I really realized that like I am not my thoughts, like the easiest analogy I have for that is I have fingernails, but I am not my fingernails, right? Like, yes, they are present. Yes, they are something I can see or feel or touch or whatever for the most part, but they're not who I am. And it's only when we interlink those two things together and our ego gets in the way and we forget that we're just pure, perfect spirit capable of anything we could ever want to do in the world. That's the only time we suffer is when we think those thoughts actually say something truthful about who we are.
That's so true. That's so true, dude. And there's so many times in my experience that I've sat in that, right? And when you get an opportunity to taste the difference, right? And it just goes back to that awareness piece. It's the changing the way we think, and the way we change the way we think is to have awareness that we are not our thoughts, right? That we're just thinking them. And so what are the implications? What are the results? What are the outcomes that we're getting as a result?
Yeah.
Oh, so good. This needs to
and
be...
you know what's funny? Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say something real quick about awareness, because I actually just was in a discussion with a client about this the other day, and so I want to share it. I think it's timely, and I think it's really important, is that I think a lot of times we discount the power of awareness.
Yes.
Because what people typically sell a lot of is how-tos, right? They sell the tips and the strategies and the practices, and there's nothing wrong with that stuff. Like, how-tos are great. Like, I love learning how to do things and new practices. But I think what happens as a result of that is that people think, oh, well, awareness, that's that like woo-woo mindset, self-help, personal growthy crap that we just do so we don't have to actually take action. And I think it's the complete opposite of that. And the other day during coaching session, this came up, totally inappropriate, but I think you'll appreciate it, is that I wanted to illustrate the power of awareness, that awareness is not just this like flighty thing. And the person I was talking to just really wasn't agreeing. And I said, that's okay. Here's my example of how powerful awareness is. If we as human beings, if we as adult human beings did not have the power of awareness, we would literally poop in our pants every day, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the awareness that we need to have a bowel movement that has us take the action to go to the bathroom. So literally, without this tiny thing of awareness, every single day we would just crap ourselves.
Yeah.
And so like, if that doesn't show you that like awareness immediately can lead you into action, then I don't know what does. Like that's a big one to me. I want to have that level of awareness in every part of my life so that I can take purposeful action and not truly, literally or metaphorically poop myself
right.
every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And this, gosh, as gross of an analogy as that is, it really lines up to reality and to truth, right?
Yeah, it does.
So when I think about in fact, I had a coaching call earlier today. And my client has been put in a position to sort of stop mentoring and to start coaching, right? There's a specific difference between having a mentor-mentee relationship and a coach. And sometimes they're both, and sometimes they're exclusive. Yeah. And one of the things that I shared with her is the great thing about being the coach is you don't always have to have the answer. In fact, most of the time it's better if you don't. Right. Right? And so what I said, the way I think about this is what a great coach does is they take an idea or a circumstance or a thought process and they hold it up to a prism and they turn the prism so that you can see the different colors that come out of it, right? And they're able to turn it in a way to give different ways of thinking or different awareness to that thing, whatever the idea, the circumstance, the issue, the thought process is for their client, for the person that they're coaching. Yeah. And when we become able to coach ourselves, to be able to take our circumstance, our thought process, our thing that we have going on, and hold our own prism up to it on our own, because we have awareness that there's a different way to think about everything all the time. That's when we're really able to start self-leading, right? Yes. And to me, that's so much what I got out of your book, and also, the conversations over the left-handed extra hot almond lattes at Jabala. And so I just want to, before we end this thing today, I just want to affirm you for turning the prism for me in so many of our conversations and in your work and in your writings, and doing that for so many other people. It's a gift, bro. It's just a gift.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that so much. And dude, you are literally one of the best in the world at what you do. I mean, I'm always amazed by you. It was such an honor to be able to spend so much time with you, and also to actually host a full day event together. Like, that was just incredible and made so much impact. And you're just an absolute rock star of a human being. I learn from you every time we talk, man, hands down.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, man.
Tell the people, I know how to get a hold of you. Tell the people how they can get a hold of you or learn more about you.
Well, hello, the people. I hang out a lot on Facebook, and so the easiest way to find me on Facebook is if you go to fbjason.com, FB like Facebook, fbjason.com. It'll take you to my Facebook page, and my actual website is thejasongoldberg.com. jasongoldberg.com was taken, so I got the most pretentious URL that I could. So it's thejasongoldberg.com. And as a gift for your listeners, if you'd like to get an absolutely free copy, digital, Kindle, PDF, audio version, or even a paperback if you're in the U.S., just pay shipping and handling, you can go to mastering mentorship. Getprisonbreak.com/mastering mentorship. And I'm sure that'll be in the show notes. So everybody can grab that as well.
Yes, that'll absolutely be in the show notes. Thank you for that. That is awesome. And I hope that every single person that gets their ear on this will take advantage of that.
For sure, man. Thank you so much for having me on, dude. You're a rock star, and I just enjoy every second I get to spend with you, man.
Feelings mutual, man. Thank you for being on.
Much love.